Since President Trump took office 3 weeks ago, he's wasted no time reshaping democracy as we know it and redefining presidential authority. Are some of his actions actually unconstitutional? Well, several lawsuits have been filed over the formation of DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiency, led by the world's richest man, Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Robert Weissman is the co-president of Public Citizens, who's joining one of such lawsuits. Rob, good to see you. Why are you suing?
Well, we're suing because Donald Trump has empowered Elon Musk, the richest person in the history of the world, to oversee a commission that's going to give advice on how to cut government spending and how to roll back regulations. So cut government spending on the poor and vulnerable and roll back regulations to increase corporate profitability. The way they're doing that, we allege, doesn't follow the law. They're creating an advisory committee. Federal law requires that advisory committees act according to a certain set of procedures, have to have fair and balanced representation, open meetings, a charter, an agenda for the meetings, keeping open records. None of those things are happening with Musk's so-called DOGE.
None of those things are happening.
Correct. They're making it up as they go along, if you want to be generous to them, but they're making it up in ways that are, we allege, violating the law. And those things matter. So originally, this was a commission of two people, Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, two billionaires. Well, the law requires that an advisory committee have fair and balanced representation. Our view is two billionaires does not make fair and balanced representation. We don't really know what Musk is doing, but the law requires that the meetings be open, that it have a specific agent, that the commission have a specific purpose, and that it adhere to that purpose. None of that seems to be going on. Given the scope and scale of what Musk is trying to do, he said he wanted to cut $2 trillion a year from the annual budget, an impossibility, but clearly contemplating massive cuts on programs that all of us rely on, especially the poor and vulnerable, trying to cut regulation in ways that will benefit corporations and his own industries. It really matters that we have some balance and that we know what is actually going on.
Being the world's richest man certainly doesn't disqualify Elon Musk from being the one to cut. I mean, look at his background. What he did with X, you might argue, is exactly why he is appropriate for this role, correct?
Well, I would say no. Again, the law requires fair and balance. And whatever you think about what Musk has done in his private businesses, that's not what goes on with the government. The whole idea of efficiency, as Elon Musk has pursued it in the business world, is not what efficiency means in the world of public service. It's not cut to the bare bones and make people exploit people to the most extreme extent possible. But also, it's not just about dollars and cents. It's really, what is the government trying to do? Are we trying to take care of people in society? Are we trying to deliver health care? Are we worried about economic concentration? Those aren't things that parallel at all what Elon Musk has been concerned about in the corporate world.
Does DOGE have any actual authority?
What it should be structured as we're alleging, is an advisory committee. It would have the authority to give advice. But what's really clear from everything that's happened since Election Day is that Elon Musk has joined at the hip with President Trump. Lots of us are saying it looks like a co-president, Elon Musk. So despite the structural authority or limitations on authority of this advisory committee, it's plain that Musk is in position to drive policymaking throughout the administration.
He gave $250 billion roughly to get President Trump elected. What are the potential conflicts of interest, and what do you believe Elon Musk wants out of this relationship?
Well, on the one hand, I think it's just fun for him, and he's not a humble guy. He thinks he knows how to do things, even when he has no idea what he's talking about. So the idea that you should cut $2 trillion in government spending is both an impossibility and undesirable by any measure. So he's bringing that kind of just hubris and ideology to it, but he's also bringing lots of conflicts of interest. Probably, there may not be any single person who has more conflicts across the government. For example, he is interested in turning X, into a money transmitter like Apple Pay, and he's taken steps to that regard today. Well, if he does that, his regulator would be the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. Musk has tweeted that they should be eliminated. He is pushing back, and Trump has issued executive orders forcing review of decisions made by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Federal Trade Commission, two agencies that have ongoing enforcement actions against Elon Musk. He's a major contractor at the Defense Department, at NASA, and elsewhere. Decisions at NASA will decide whether there's one company or two companies, Musk's company plus another, or just Musk's company that NASA's relying on to make spaceships to go to the moon. On and on and on. Tesla has vast interest before the federal government, is under lots of enforcement actions and investigations, wants to have special rules for self-driving cars, which haven't proved to be very safe. There is probably no one in the country or in the world who has more conflicts of interest before the United States government than Elon Musk.
Wow, that was lengthy, but you are not against cutting or making government more efficient. You have actually laid out a plan. How much potential cuts do you believe are on the table? Where are they?
Well, there are lots of ways the government can be made more efficient. Of course, again, dollars and cents isn't the first thing you should think about. But of course, whatever the government is trying to do, it should do as efficiently as possible. The real big savings is dealing with corporate abuses, corporate subsidies, loopholes, escapes, and tax breaks. For example, we could save $200 billion a year on drug prices if we were to deal with monopolies that the government gives them. Some of that would go to consumers, some of it to taxpayers. We could save $100 billion a year by cracking down on privatized Medicare, which charges far more than traditional Medicare does. We could raise $500 billion a year with just modest increases on taxes on the rich and corporations as compared to the Trump baseline tax cuts. We could save $20 billion a year by eliminating subsidies for oil and gas companies who are driving us towards climate catastrophe. That's big money. There's a lot of money to be had if you're willing to go after the gifts and handouts and subsidies and tax loopholes for the rich and big corporations.
And that is why you should be involved, why they should frankly want you involved in DOGE. Now, President Trump also ordered a pause on all federal grants and loans effective at 5 o'clock Eastern time today. Nonprofits, health groups among those already suing. What is the impact potentially?
Well, the impact is chaos, utter chaos in the first order, because no one really knows exactly what's affected. And the order that came from the Trump administration is poorly drafted. It's kind of more like a tweet than a serious government order. But it affects, they said, hundreds of billions of dollars in government spending every year. It's going to absolutely affect families and communities across the country. We don't know if it's going to affect Medicaid. It looked like it would. They say maybe not. It's going to affect grants to universities, grants to states, probably funding for schools, Head Start programs, a wide range of things that people around the country rely on. Whole business enterprises that rely on government funding are going to have to deal with a temporary pause for they don't know how long, while the Trump administration forces a review about whether these programs not just do what they're supposed to do, but somehow involve their boogeymen. Is it a DEI program? Is it advancing Marxist equity? One of the things they're allegedly worried about. And on and on. But what it is for now is chaos and real disruption in lives of people across the country. That's going to play out in the days and weeks ahead, and it is going to be very painful for lots of people for no reason whatsoever.
And of course, under the radar, ironically, was late Friday night, the president firing 17 inspectors general, a story that has, for the most part, been buried by the media. How concerned are you about the impacts of that, and what do inspectors general do?
Right, this was a Friday night, midnight massacre. Inspectors general are independent watchdogs who are supposed to look at specific agencies to root out waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption. And Trump, as you said, fired 17 of them in violation of the law this past Friday night. The only thing you conclude is that he wants to enable waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption. There's no other reason to fire these people. And no matter what, there's no justification to do it illegally, which he did by not giving Congress 30 days notice. Congress put that rule in effect requiring notice to them precisely because Trump tried to do this in his first term, and precisely because they understood that firing these independent watchdogs, many of whom actually were appointed in the first place by Donald Trump, is a way for the government to do bad things, to engage in corruption, to give out favors, but avoid any scrutiny for what they're doing.
And theoretically, they should share the same goals as DOGE, that is cutting out waste and fraud. So with the party having control of the House and the Senate, with the cabinet largely full of loyalists above all else, who do you believe is the check right now and going forward for the next 4 years on the administration?
Well, we're still going to see a lot of action out of Congress, and hopefully the Congress on this inspectors general issue, inspectors general have long had support from Republicans and Democrats, will demand that the administration walk back what it did and at least give the 30 days notice. We're going to see lots of litigation, beginning with ours, and many more cases, including some that are filed today, to deal with unconstitutional and illegal actions by the Trump administration. And we're going to really need the courts to rule on the merits and not give in to Trump intimidation. And then ultimately, we're going to need people to speak out. What the Trump people are trying to do is overwhelm us with the volume of what they're doing and instill fear. And if they succeed in instilling fear and people are quiet, they're going to be able to get away with all kinds of things that are unconstitutional, illegal, dangerous, and drive us towards authoritarianism. On the other hand, if people rally together and stand up, then we can stop those moves and we can strengthen our democracy, which we desperately need to do.
We do indeed. Flooding the zone, clearly the playbook once again. Robert Weissman is the president of Public Citizens. Appreciate you being with us today. Thank you.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much.